Welcome back to the show, everyone. Craig and Jonah. So, I've been sharing recently some screenshots with Jonah. I ended up in somehow, I love the internet. I love the algorithm, whatever it does. Hopefully, the Holy Spirit is influencing the algorithms a little bit.
Or it's just Google. I don't know.
Uh, hopefully, hopefully the Lord is influencing Google. But one of these Instagram reels showed up. Of course, when you talk about the stuff that we talk about, there's a certain theme, recurring theme in your YouTube feed and your Instagram feed or whatever. But this couple, and I don't think they're Catholic, but they're a Christian couple. The thing came up, and it was this lady was kind of pushing back on all this pushback, I would say, to the idea that intimacy is a quote unquote need for men. My and she was very good. She's like, look, ladies, and I was telling my wife, talking about this with my wife last night. She agreed. She's like, because there seems to be this instinct by women to recoil out the idea that sex is a need. Oh, come on, guys, you're not going to die. No one's going to die from not having it.
Mm-hmm.
But she's like, well, all right, is having help around the house a need for you?
Ooh,
Is having your husband?
your wife said that?
No, that's what
Oh,
this lady
oh, okay,
said.
okay.
But my wife agreed with that. She's like, well,
That's a
there's a
good
lot
point.
of things you say are needs for you that aren't quote unquote needs by the definition you're using.
That's true.
They're really important to you and beneficial to the marriage. And so if that's kind of the standard, it shouldn't be, is this a life or death situation for your spouse, but is this something that's really
But
important to them?
that's a fair point. It's like saying, do you need money? You don't need money.
Right.
You don't need it at all.
You don't need many things. If
No.
that's the standard, you don't need many things, but there's lots of things that are really, really important that most
Mm-hmm.
of us consider needs.
Yeah. I mean, and really it comes down to it may not be like an absolute need in the way that water is a need, but if you want to have a good relationship, it is a need.
Mm-hmm.
Like it is definitely a need if you're going to have a relationship where it's loving and caring and helpful and
Yeah. And she kind of says, look, if you want a good marriage, your marriage needs both spouses to be reasonably fulfilled. And this
mm-hmm.
is essential to your husband
Yep.
having that. So your marriage does need this. Maybe your husband, whether your husband needs it in the strict sense of the word, whatever, but your marriage, if you want it to flourish, is going to have to take, to address this. And so, and I really like that. I thought that made a lot of sense. And so she has this Facebook group that I went ahead and it's sort of a, I'm not sure what it's called, but it's kind of people, it tends to attract people that are struggling in their marriages. I think
Mm-hmm.
they do some counseling and stuff like that. So I got into this Facebook group, and holy cow, the stories on there, the pain and
And so when you listen to the just how painful the stories are, when they say that nobody ever died from not
oh,
having sex, that is not true. I don't think. Sure, they didn't die of some kind of natural causes, but there is definitely extreme suffering that goes on that may push somebody over the edge. I mean, I don't doubt that.
yeah, I mean, you see the way some people talk. I mean, that's an enormous amount of stress and mental load, and does it lead to other disorders in your life, drugs, alcohol,
Or worse.
just yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, with that one post where the guy talked about just, having his wife be unattracted to him. I mean, just the pain that guy was going through. I mean, that's a real painful thing. And I know how that feels.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a painful situation.
Yeah, it's kind of like it's sort of like paper cuts, and you pour,
Oh,
salt. Like it doesn't look
it's
like a
true.
huge wound maybe to the other person, but you talk about acute pain. I mean,
Yep.
these parts of our lives are very painful, even
when you go up to be mildly affectionate to your wife, whether it's just a hug or a small kiss or whatever, and they brush you away like repeatedly, that wears you down, like in the worst way.
Yeah. And unfortunately, I think that's all too common. I don't know why it is. I mean, do, do you think people back in, 2 or 3 generations ago didn't go through this, or was marriage just so transactional that the emotional side of it, like they weren't expecting emotional intimacy, so to speak? What do you
I
think?
don't know. The only real comparison I think we can do on that sort of things with the Amish, and I suspect, I don't know, if it's the technology, but like if people go to bed with their phones and look at them, I think that's a bad thing. And obviously, if you don't have the technology, you don't worry about it. You just talk to each other or whatever. And maybe I think, like, maybe we are supposed to lay in bed and talk to each other at night, as opposed to watching Netflix or whatever else.
Did you send me something about how, like, or maybe you were talking about, like, when you're outdoors, like if you're outside doing a lot of things and
Yeah.
whatever, like the urge, like the
Yeah,
whatever.
just that yeah, the sex drive. I think so. I was hunting basically all day, every day during it's like the peak of the whitetail rut around here, and so I was sitting in the tree stand all day, and I was just like definitely just worn out by the end of the day after doing that every day, and I don't know how that happened really, because if I just you know am inside all day, it's just a different I don't know. It's a different level of desire at the end of the day, and I don't know if it relates to this mental stimulation that occurs when you're sitting outdoors and listening to everything, or just being that focused. I don't know. I don't know, but and maybe we are supposed to live outside. I don't know. That would
Yeah,
make sense too.
yeah, that is a product of our excuse me, civilization, and moving largely towards people working inside and stuff. Is there something about that that's not fulfilling some need, that men have this sexual desire
Or
that?
you're just supposed to be stimulated mentally the entire day,
Yeah.
or maybe that's all just a fluke, and you are supposed to be attracted to your wife
Yeah.
frequently. I mean, I don't know,
Yeah. So, you know,
because that's really the fuel that feeds the fire of your relationship. I mean, if you don't have intimacy, chances are your relationship isn't very good.
unless you're the Amish. And so I always wonder, so what do you think
We
is,
should get an Amish guy
yeah, what do
on
you think
here.
what do you so I think it's one of two things. Um or could be more scenarios, but one of two. One is the husband just gets to dictate when and how often.
It's possible with the
And I
Amish. I don't
think
know.
I would think in that culture, the women are kind of born, raised to do that. Sort
I don't know. Yeah.
uh, or or are the men so tired from working with horses all day and stuff that they get around to it every week, once a week or whatever, after their bath or whatever? Is that good enough? Genuinely curious.
I don't know. I actually have no idea, and it'd be great to find out.
Well, if there's any of you,
We have an Amish listener.
yeah, if there's Amish out there, you guys that remember when they did that whole nationwide announcement thing on the phones
Yeah.
or whatever everyone was panicked about. There was a bunch of Amish guys that got busted because their phones went off. Their secret phones got
Yeah.
caught,
I'm sure
and
that's pretty common.
so maybe those listeners are gone. But they have their ways.
Yep.
So if
Yeah,
there's an
they take
Amish guy.
one phone away, but
Yeah,
they can still get another one.
yeah. So all you so
Like, is technology bad for relationships? I guess that, and maybe the Amish could help us
I
settle
would
that.
I would love to hear kind of what really goes on. So all the
Because
Yoders
you
out
don't think
there.
though that you know being an Amish housewife would be an enormous task if they don't have washers and dryers.
Well, they get every ounce of productivity out of their kids,
So
though.
that's true. So yeah, it's
We
probably
spend a lot of energy trying to get our kids to do
once you
stuff.
get past the first five, you got a lot of laborers.
Yeah, yeah. Not to say that they're slackers, but they know how to get work done.
Oh, for sure.
So
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. Well,
So
hopefully we can find the answer to that. But I suspect that technology is poor for relationships just in general. Like it because like, for me and my wife, sometimes we sit down and watch a movie and then we're falling asleep, whereas we could just be laying in bed talking to each other, which might lead to, whatever.
Yeah.
More kids.
Yeah, that's right. Well, so I want to circle back to kind of the original point here, and I was thinking about this because I reached out to one of these poor guys, and I said, "Look, we've kind of been through some of the struggles you have." I said one of the advantages we have is we have wives that have kind of been on sort of both sides of this problem and might be able to relate to what your wife is experiencing or whatever. I said, why don't you just send me an email? We'll keep it confidential and we'll maybe roundtable it. And I've been thinking about that. The thing that we have is like I said, we've been on both sides of this problem. And I have very good conversations with my wife now, and it's much easier to talk about someone else's problem.
That's true, but she would still give good input.
Yeah. So if there's people out there that feel kind of hopeless or whatever, maybe sharing this podcast with your wife isn't going to do much, but if you want us to roundtable with our wives and maybe we can get something together that you can send to your wife, we'd be happy to do that. Now, we're not marriage therapists.
Oh yeah,
but
we only have real life experience.
Yeah,
which is worth
that might be
something.
pretty valuable. So anyway, wanted to throw that out there. But as I was thinking about these folks, I don't think any of these are Catholics, and um, our our quote unquote 4-part solution to more marital intimacy. Part 2 is both both spouses have to not want the guy to be taking matters into his own hand. That is the great separator here, and maybe that's the wisdom of the church, because I see these conversations online of non-Catholics going through the exact same struggles, and you see women complaining that their husband is demanding intimacy or whatever. In her mind, it sounds like a demand, but it's probably a plea for help. But
yeah,
they're like, well, he's got 2 hands and an imagination. Go take care of itself. Like
so then it's over. Like that's about it's not hopeless per se, but it's close. Especially if she doesn't care if he uses porn either, because then it's
they don't want, most of them don't want that. But I got to thinking, is like that may be the big issue here, because if without that, with that as an outlet that both spouses think's okay, it can really allow people to walk sort of separate lives for a long time, and the wife's like, it's not my problem.
The connection isn't there. So then once you stop having sex, the connection with your wife is just different. Like it's just different. I think it's a biological function there where sex is supposed to keep you together. And once you stop doing that, it changes your relationship, like without a doubt.
Yeah. So getting back to the whole question about whether solo acts are harmful to marriages, I don't know if they are, but if that's off the table, it really forces us Catholics to deal with this issue together on a moral level. And that really was a huge thing for our marriage. Is my wife's like, I don't want you doing that.
Yeah, you're supposed to come together.
Yeah. So I don't like to. I spent a lot of time bashing 2352 and whatever, but maybe that's
maybe yeah.
I do see that. Like I guess I will say this: the church's teaching on solo and 2352 provides an opportunity for Catholic couples to maybe solve some of these intimacy issues that maybe non-Catholics or those that don't follow that teaching aren't forced to do so. But I tell you, if you're not in that situation and your spouse doesn't know or doesn't care, holy cow, 2352 is a huge burden on your mind.
Yeah.
And constant trips to the confessional and all that. I mean,
Yeah. I don't know. I don't know. You definitely need, but then at a very basic level, is 2352 is kind of irrelevant for people that aren't Catholics, because it's really about your wife caring about you, is what it is.
mm-hmm.
So,
Yeah.
you know, you need to establish that first.
Yeah. But it also reminded me too that, it's, and you would, I don't know why it doesn't click for these people, these ladies, these non-Catholic ladies, but solo is different than with your spouse. Like they're,
Oh yeah, it's not
like
even
one is way better than the other.
Yeah,
Like it's not a substitute.
No.
And
that's proven scientifically and just lived out through our experience, like it's not, they're not even remotely the same.
Like if your moral values are such that it's not an issue, but your husband keeps coming wanting intimacy with you, that should tell you something. Like it should tell you that, and
it's not something you can just take care of yourself. Like it's
right,
not at least in any sort of remotely fulfilling way.
Right. And I just feel so bad for these, because I think these are by and large people that love each other and care about each other, but are deeply pained and don't know how to find each other again.
And that is
and I just,
when that happens, it can be a wonderful experience, like re-finding your wife, I think, after a period of long difficult abstinence is a wonderful thing.
Isn't that the so-called honeymoon effect that the NFP propagandists promote?
Well, yeah, but if it happens like on a monthly basis, that's difficult.
Yeah, I mean, there is some there is something special about rekindling things when you've gone through some difficulties.
There is, yeah.
But
I would say though that honeymoon effect might be why most people that practice NFP have like 9 kids.
Yeah,
I mean, it works for a couple months. And
yeah.
Then, I don't know, not to bash NFP, but really,
Yeah, I mean, people that can follow it to a T without being.
We just have to never have sex.
Yeah.
Like,
well, it's funny because I was listening to one of our favorite podcasts the other day, and she had on her co-host husband. Kind of, he was blunt, although he wasn't I don't think as transparent as we are. But he was talking about how you got to crucify your flesh. The men and like it is, like it feels like a crucifixion to get through the abstinence periods. And I only bring that up because it's not just an inconvenience.
No, like when you actually desire your wife, that's really painful.
Yeah.
Like that is a painful experience. Yeah. I don't know. It's not easy for sure.
So anyway, well, I don't know. Does our system work on non-Catholics? I don't know. I feel bad for couples, and so we're available. We would love to, if people want to, if you're kind of at the end of your road and you got nothing to lose, talk to these guys. We'll be happy to, talk about your situation. Maybe we have some suggestions. Maybe our wives have some suggestions, but there is hope.
There's totally hope. There's absolute hope. Like, yeah, it can totally be overcome if both people want to do it, and that's what it really takes.
Yeah, I started this podcast because I thought, well, there's not much hope this is good, so I'm going to at least warn the next generation.
But things improve.
Now things are great.
Yeah.
So
yep, marriage when it's going well can be amazing.
It is, yes.
But if it doesn't go well, it can be some of the most extreme torture on the planet. I mean,
yeah.
Like it can be extreme torture if you were in a bad marriage. But it can all be fixed. So
so I don't know. I'm very optimistic. I'm very hopeful and grateful, and want to share that with as many people as we can. And so if you're listening out, and you're feeling that hopelessness, let us know if we can help you somehow, and we'll keep sharing our experiences,
Yep.
raw and unfiltered. So,
Yep.
all right.
All right.
Well, thank you, Jonah.
You bet.
Till next time, everyone.
Bye.
Have a good one.